We love Mondays in the 5 o'clock hour with longtime college football coach Phil Bennett on his back porch with the outdoor kitchen and 2 acres or so of beauty and the pool. And I don't know if you were watching or listening to us. Craig has been rolling today, blasting away. Go ahead.
He sounded like an East Texas Baptist minister after prom night, and a bunch of them drank a bunch of beer.
Yeah, he's. You know what? Craig didn't go to Baylor. We covered Baylor. None of us did. But it's so hard to watch, Phil. And I know that. I mean, just what do you do?
Well, the thing you do, and one of the things I want to encourage everybody is the season. We're not even halfway in the season. You look at the games that have been played. They've been in most every game. Very easily could have won. Last week, I thought they were. After BYU missed the field goal, I thought the way Sawyer was playing, I thought we got a chance. And, I think at any moment, I like what what he said, JJ said. I would not be surprised if they go up and beat Iowa State. I think they're good enough to win some games. How many, I don't know. I think it's too early to flush the season because I think the league is a very even league. And if they got hot and got some young guys going, their line improved a little bit, that they could be in the mix. But, that's the hard part. When you play good enough to think you can win and then you can't close out, it becomes extremely frustrating for everyone. We all talked about after Colorado, how will they respond the next week? Well, it wasn't good. It wasn't a good first half, but man, the second half turned on. So I think it's too early. I know what Craig said, and I appreciate what he said. He's not calling for heads, but I promise you, that coaching staff's in there, and they're nurturing those guys, and they're correcting those guys, and they're doing everything they can to try to, rectify the situation. And, right now they've got to cut out the outside, with everybody. It's about those people that's on the field, in the room. It's about them. And hopefully the people will support them. I got a quick story. Last week after I said that I like the 5-man rush. They just didn't run it right. Someone found my number, Smoke, and texted me. He said, "You're the dumb SOB we should have got rid of after your first year." Just started wearing me out. and I'm sitting there thinking, who the hell is this? So he must have been that dumb that he didn't think I would call him. and I tracked his ass down. And I told him, I said, "Listen, I don't know who you are." And I mean, he almost hung up, but I will give him this. He wouldn't hang up. I said, "Tell me this." I said, "Do you know any other defensive coordinator at Baylor that won 2 conference championships back to back, 6 years, probably won more games than any coordinator been there? And I'm the worst ever?" And he's sitting there and he starts talking. He goes, "Well, I said that out of frustration." And we're going through this deal. Finally, I said, "Well, I don't even know your name." He goes, "And I'm not telling you my name." And I said, "But you're too dumb to text me with a number that I could call." I thought it was pretty funny. I said, "By the way," I said, "how did you get my number?" This is a funny story. He said, "Somebody that used to live in your apartment downtown. One time I got it. I put it in there. And I just kept it." How about that?
Yeah. Good for you.
Phil, I was at SMU this weekend, and my alma mater. I mean, our fans showed up. The team didn't, but they've got juice in a way that they haven't in a long time. I mean, being in the ACC, there's obviously lots of money. You were there. You know this well. I thought about you a lot when I was walking around and thought, man, it would have been different for you, for June Jones, for a lot of different coaches to have this kind of excitement and feeling around the program when you were there. What is it like for you to see that now, and how hard was it knowing that you were still trying to fight when you got the job, something that happened 15 years before?
I thought, Paul, when I was there, I thought we could overcome it. When I got there, I realized, you start, and my situation was different. Also, I needed to get back in Texas. I was a single dad. I was raising 2 children, and I thought, man, I can fix this. But I came to realize that just where we were at, you had TCU 35, 40 miles away, doing everything they can, spending all the money trying to get back to being a BCS school at the time, and we were doing nothing. We only move we made was from the WAC conference to the Conference USA, and we just wanted to beat ourselves up. We couldn't get over the fact that, hey, we're the only program that was ever put on probation and shut down, and we couldn't get out of our way. Now, I always knew there's great people there. SMU has great people. I've always said that. And I'm excited for them. The Millers who put the money up. I mean, I think I've had so many people, so many former players sent me pictures of Saturday and called me, and they said, Coach, it's unbelievable. There's 40,000 people here. It's packed, and they beat, a named school, your school. And now at the same time, it's not the same Florida State, but Rhett and them are doing a really good job, and I'm happy for them.
Coach, have you been able to watch much of Oklahoma State? A lot of promise based on what they had returning. They get beat up pretty good by K-State, got beat up at home by Utah. Quarterback play hasn't been great. I think it kind of starts there, but what are your thoughts on what is now a 3-2 and 0-2 in the Big 12 start for Mike Gundy and the Cowboys?
The last 2 years I've watched them defensively. They have struggled mightily on defense. I don't know what the answer is. They have a group. For some reason, Mike never elevated any of the assistants to coordinator that were there. He hired a guy, and I'm not blaming him, that had never coached Division I football to be the coordinator. And of course, I'm always looking at defense. That's an issue. And then, of course, your quarterback, you would think at year 7 that he would play the best he's played. But I'm not sure, they can't run the ball, Greg, like they did last year. I'm not sure they're not in for a tough closing here, because Kansas State obviously wanted to play well after their BYU fiasco. But that was a dominating performance by them.
Phil, the Big 12 has always had a team that was not supposed to do well, play well. BYU may be that team. Last year, West Virginia. The year before that, TCU made their great run. And you were a part of a team that was playing and winning Big 12 titles or in the mix. How difficult was it then when you had Baylor and TCU and Oklahoma was Oklahoma? Texas was in the start of kind of a funk. Oklahoma State was good. K-State was good. Is it a battering ram, even though it doesn't seem to have a lot of the alpha names?
I said earlier, Smoke, I think that league is very there's good matchups. You look at the Kansas TCU game. The score was not indicative of the game. The game was a better game than that. The only game, what was crazy, obviously the other direction, Colorado used that win over Baylor and went on the road, and they thrashed UCF. Mm-hmm. There was never a doubt in that game about who was in charge, and vice versa with Arizona. Arizona barely beats Northern Arizona, who my son and Incarnate Word beat handedly last week, and yet Arizona dominates Utah. So that's what I'm thinking. There's games that can be won. I know that Iowa State has played well, but I don't see them as a dominant team.
Phil Bennett with us on 365 Sports Mondays in the 5 o'clock hour.
So do you think there's a team in the Big 12 that can win a playoff game or two, or is this not the year?
It's going to be from here on out. I think there's a chance that, you look what happened to Utah. Everybody talked Utah, and Arizona really could have won by a larger margin. I'm not sure there's going to be a dominant team, Paul. I look at them. I try to sit there, and Arizona State is okay. There's a lot of teams that are capable, but I'm not sure there's a dominant team. You look what Kansas State did at BYU. West Virginia, beat Kansas. Kansas evidently they're close. Can you imagine the frustration that they're having at this point with what getting their quarterback back and the expectations that they've had? New stadium. Now, I will say this: they're playing in Kansas City, and that's got to have some effect. But they're just not playing well on either side of the ball well enough to win. The team that right now that might get hot might be Colorado. Who knows?
Coach, Texas Tech, what have you thought about the job Joey McGuire's done there in Lubbock? They've got the home crowd cooking. They need to be able to prove it on the road, and he'll say that as much as anybody, is that's where they have not shown what they need to show. But 4-1 start, nice win. What do you think of just what they've been building over there?
Craig, I think we talked about it earlier. The first game, my son-in-law and his father are both from Lubbock. I went to the opening game against Abilene Christian, and they could not stop Abilene Christian. But offensively, you could see that they had some players. This Brooks, the running back, is outstanding. Morton, the quarterback, is really good. And I think Joey has really grabbed them. They go lose it. They go on the road the next week, lose to Washington State. And I think he's really got a grasp of what they can do. Tim DeRuyter is really a good coach. I knew he would find he was trying to plug in some guys. It looks like he's done that. I think they're a team that, as well as anybody else there, that could win on any given night in the Big 12. I like what Joey's doing.
Well, we've talked a good amount of Big 12. I'm sure the guys might have other questions there, but I want to ask you about the main event from this past weekend. Alabama, Georgia. That looked like, the world was turned upside down on its head with the way Alabama started that game. I think we're all like, oh, my gosh, how do we just badly miscalculate this? And then Georgia does what Georgia did. So much to unpack from that, but where do you start, and what were your thoughts watching that?
I had memories of Baylor TCU in 14.
Yeah.
Every play you held your damn breath. What about that 17-year-old freshman? The catches and after run catch. And then you sort of had a feeling that Georgia, Kirby's done too good a job. They're not going to go down there and fold and embarrass. I thought it was there was a lot of talent that you could see, explosiveness. And the sad thing, it wasn't sad, but for Georgia it was, their quarterback finally came alive the second half, and he just made a bad throw at the end of the game. What an atmosphere! I think it was a typical championship battle game.
I had a question from the chat room from one of our viewers, Kyle. What do you do, coaches? Has there ever been a game in your entire career, even when you were a heavy underdog, that you didn't think you could win?
That yeah. If you're telling the truth,
right?
Yeah. There's been games that you sat there and said, "There's no way." I can remember in my career, early in my career, I was at A&M. I think it might have been 80, and we went to Austin. And Rick McIver was a quarterback at Texas, Herky Walls, and they were going to play for the national championship. Fred Akers was there, and we had Gary Kubiak was our quarterback. I think we were around 500, and I didn't think we could play with them. They had that great defensive tackle from Giddings, and really good team, and we beat them 13-7. And I could still remember, I said, after that game, I said, I'll never doubt that anything can happen. You just find a way.
Yeah, and the question was, so if you match up against an opponent and across the board, they're better than you, talent, depth, whatever. They're better than you across the board. Then how do you game plan for that?
Well, one of the things I always thought we were good at Baylor is that we created matchups. Coaches find matchups that help them. Now, some people say if you're playing a team better, you've got to keep the ball away from them. You've got to make the game short and all those things. I mean, you got to find every week. You got to find a team's weakness and create a matchup that you can win. And sometimes that matchup will keep you in the game. And same thing, you know, people don't understand. A lot of people say, well, they're a bend but don't break defense. You know what? If you're keeping people to field goals in college football today, you're going to win a lot of games. You're going to win a lot of games. You know, when I was at Baylor, my 6 years, we played more possessions than any team in America because Art was going to go. He was fast-paced, and he never lied to me. He goes, Phil, I know you'll find a way to get us the ball. But we played right at 16 possessions a game, where everybody else in the league was playing 9, maybe 10. So you find a way to get that matchup that you can win. So, and I say this again, you've heard me say this many times, David, coaching matters. What you do matters.
To that end, Phil, I had a podcast for 1 year with Orlando Scandrick, who used to play at Boise State and the Cowboys. And he said one of the problems that people have is that they want to see the doomsday defense or the purple people eaters where a team has like 95 total yards in a game.
Yeah.
So that era is over. It's over. Like, it's not going to happen. He said red zone defense is the best stat you can go by. And so because of that, you have to think of things differently because teams are going to get their chunk plays and all that. But again, if you trade 3 for 7 or 7 for 3 most of the time, you're going to win those games.
It's huge. I mean, and you get, you know, I tell people this. When you get a stop, whether it's by downs, takeaways, field goals, I mean, it's crazy. I remember Art was different than everybody. He didn't care if all things were equal, we were taking the ball first because he wanted to score. And we got defensively. I'd never done this before because I'd been around Bill Snyder, Dave Wanstead. They were ball control people. I told our guys, I said, if we get the first 3 stops, there's a chance. I think 8 out of 12 games 1 year, we were up 21-0 before, you know, the first 3 possessions. So it became so critical of getting those first 3 stops to get the ball to your offense to have a chance to get them, you know, like I said, take them out of what they were planning on doing. When you're down 21-0, you got to change your game plan.
So, you know, Baylor's clock's ticking. You know, I mean, there were thoughts that there could be a decision even to move on after the end of last year. But Dave Aranda came back. I think most everyone likes him a lot. Obviously, Mac wants to make this work or hopes to make this work. And so everyone right now wants to, like, fire everybody. What is the danger of firing somebody? And they're not going to do that. I can't see that happening. For a while, when it was 28-7, I was like, man, I don't know if he's going to get to halftime. But as a coach, you've been there. You know what it's like. What is that like right now inside that program, or the dangers of pulling the trigger? Some people would say not too early because it should have already been pulled.
Well, I'm not going to be – I say this again. We all know the realities of what he's facing. Mm-hmm. You know, and you would have to say, anybody with any common sense say it's a long shot. But it's still early in the season.
Right.
They've played games close enough. They've got to close the hatches, cut the outside world, whoever. You know, you're not worried about anything but us. And just, you know, and I know those coaches. I know quite a few of them. They will do a great job of saying, hey, we're this close. Let's just take it 1 week at a time. And hopefully, Mac, the powers to be, it does no good to make a decision right now. Some people say, well, you can get people in. No, you don't have to do that. Finish the season, see where it lies, and then make a decision. You still have time to get the coach that you want. If you know, and I would not think, I would hopeful that they would not think about doing anything for these kids and the program until the season's over. And you just don't know. Like I said, you know, you look at these teams, you look at they're capable of beating Iowa State, Arizona, everybody, Arizona State, all of them right down the road. You just don't know. You got to prove it can happen. But give him a chance by just leaving him alone and then make a decision.
I had a coach text me this. It's extremely frustrating, but very optimistic. Coach Arand has done a great job building a good culture here. Feel positive about the locker room and the staff. Everyone is in good spirits, ready to get back to work. Based on them coming back, does that also show that they have not quit on him?
Oh, absolutely. Those coaches, you know what they're doing? That they're reinforcing everything and it's obvious they're a better football team than they were a year ago. Are they missing some things? Yes. Their offensive line needs to play better. They got to run the ball better. Defensively, they can't give up big plays early. But they're all correctable, and the guys, you can tell there's more attention to detail. They're playing harder. I'm just not willing. I'm not saying they will, but you know what? Let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. And you're sitting here. You're not even at a halftime yet. Let them see what happens. And there's games to be won. There's games to be won that they can win.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it. All
right, guys.
You get on that grill, get on that smoker. Phil Bennett, love having him on. What a beautiful scene in the background, the view, 2+ acres, the outdoor kitchen, which has always been a dream of mine, and the pool, the dogs barking. The grass is still somewhat green because it's been warm.